Okay, welcome. So I was anxious and eager to get this new teaching out to you guys as soon as possible. I'm doing this live for a couple of reasons. There's nobody on here yet, but I'm doing this live because it saves me a lot of time. I don't have to then film it and then upload it to my computer and then edit it and then upload it to YouTube. I don't have to do any of that. I can just hit stream and it's automatically being recorded. I am on a schedule today, so I may not be able to take any questions, but we'll see what happens. So, what I'm going to do today for the next hour at least, I've got a call coming in an hour and a half, but we'll at least try to stay on for an hour. I am going to share with you a very special, very powerful technique to connect you to the web of life force energy. If you remember in the last live broadcast I did, I was sharing some basic fundamental understandings of what shamanism is so that you can teach it. And as you know, the first thing that I say that's most important to do is to understand the fundamental assumption. Everything has an assumption. It's very important you understand that. Everything has a foundation. So that's why it's, virtually impossible to have a meaningful conversation with somebody about spirituality or philosophy if you don't share a common assumption. This is, why people get into religious arguments. It's even why people get into personal arguments. Because most of the time, people are coming in with two completely different assumptions. On a relationship level, you have to know what the other person expects. You have to know what the other person believes love is. Love for one person is not the same as for somebody else. Fidelity, true respect, all these things are things that we need to have a common understanding. This is why we have laws. We have laws so that even if you don't agree with the law, it's the idea of ideally, the consensus of the community says, here's what we all have decided is best for everybody concerned. And so we provide limitations so that people have a fundamental understanding. You go drive on the street. You've got to drive in the U.S., you've got to drive on the right side of the street. If somebody coming down the road does not share that fundamental assumption about where they should be, you're probably going to crash into them. So this is very important. So as I shared with you in the last broadcast, the assumption is that the universe, from a shamanic perspective, is made up of a web of life force energy. Everything in the universe is made up of this life force energy, and everything in the universe, whether it's a rock or whether it's an idea, is connected to each other through this web of life force energy. And this web of life force energy is conscious. So there's a really interesting concept in Vedic Hinduism, which has to do with the god Indra. If you're new to my channel, you may not have heard me say, as I have a million times before, that Indra and Thunar, Indra and Thor, are the same deity. Not just because they're the gods of thunder and lightning, not just because they're Indo-European gods, they really are the same god. They have a slightly different vibration as a result of slight changes in the name. Now you might say to yourself, well, how is Thor the same name as Indra? In order to understand that, you have to look at the construction of the name Thor. The original Germanic name for Thor is Thunar. It comes from two two syllables, thu and nar. Thu is the Indo-European root word for thunder, for drop of water, for nectar of immortality, for the nectar of immortality that comes from the moon, the soma, and it also means the mind. Nar is an Indo-European root word which has to do with the root of divinity. There's a word for human beings called Narayan, but it means divine human. More specifically, it means the root, the first cause. So whenever you have Nar, it means, it's translated as Lord, but what it really means is first divine cause. So Thunar is the first divine cause of the nectar of immortality, of the mind. And human beings are Man, which is moon or mind. We have a very close connection to Thunar. So Indra is the same deity, slightly different pronunciation. It's made up of slightly different root words, but the root of it is still Thu. So the root of Indra is Inthura. In is, I believe, connected to the rune of Ing, which has to do with the internal fire of divinity. But at the very least, it means full or bright. Thu, I've already told you about, and Ra is the fire of the sun. It means king. Raja means king. The power of Ra, the power of the sun. The sun is the king, the sun is the soul. So Inthura is the Lord, the king of the bright moon, the king of the fully empowered mind. Inthura. So Thura, Thunar, same word, same Indo-European language, two different cultures separated by thousands of years and thousands of miles. It's the same deity. If you worship Indra, you're going to get more of a fiery nature because it's going to be connected to the full moon. It's going to be connected to the sun, Ra. So it's going to have more of a fiery nature to it, but it is still the same god, the king. When he is, Indra is the king in Vedic mythology. Thunar is more of a lunar deity, has more of a Jupiterian lunar effect, which means that that's the difference between what they drink. In Germanic mythology, Thunar drinks mead, which is very nourishing. I mean, people used to drink mead to get, lots of calories and protein and vitamins, as well as whatever other effect it may have had. And Indra drinks the soma, and the soma is more of a narcotic. It has things like ephedra, and we don't know what else that they put in it, but it was a stimulant, and it was may have been a hallucinogen. And the Vedic priest would drink soma and get intoxicated with soma, and then in that fury of their shamanic intoxication, they would write the Vedas. So when they drank soma, it wasn't so much that they were drinking it, is that they were shamanically shape-shifting to become Indra, and they were drinking it so that Indra would be empowered, so that Indra could do his job of ruling over the universe. So we're going to be talking about how this power rules over the universe. And I have, however you want to look at it, I've synthesized, I've created, perhaps I'm channeling a mantra from various aspects of this understanding of Thunar and Indra and how they connect. Now, we have to understand, before we go any further, what this web of Indra is. And if you can Google it, the web of Indra. It's taught by Buddhists as well as Vedics. And what it talks about is this web of life force energy. Now, as you know, Thunar, Indra, is the power of electromagnetism. And as you know, everything in the universe is infused with this electromagnetism. We've talked about that. Google that, the electromagnetic force. That is Indra, that is Thunar. He is also lightning and thunder, but he's the electromagnetic force of the universe. It is that invisible force that is, I don't know how many trillions of billions of times stronger than the force of gravity, is the force of the electromagnetic force, the strength of the electromagnetic force. It prevents me from falling through my chair. It prevents all of the cells of my body from collapsing in on each other. It slows down the nuclear fusion of hydrogen at the center of the sun. If it wasn't for the electromagnetic force, the sun would burn itself out much more quickly. And the Vedics say that the sun sits in the east, the direction of Indra, the direction of the thunder god, that the sun sits in the east and worships Indra for long life. How did they know 7,000 years ago that the electromagnetic force keeps the sun from burning itself out? How did they know that? This is this web of life force energy. Now, there's a deeper concept. A lot of people don't know this, especially when I hear people, I won't mention any names, but I can remember watching a very prominent Asatru teacher talking about Thor and how Thor was, really, he didn't really think things through. He was very, just kind of reacted to anger, and he was quick to anger, and he wasn't, kind of like he wasn't very smart, but he's true, and he just reacts out of his, the typical mindless warrior of truth. Well, it's very hard for me to hear that because, first off, you don't know what his name means, Thunar, the Lord of the Mind. And then, more importantly, you don't understand that Thunar is a god of mental evolution. There is nothing faster than the power of thought. That's why Thunar is quick to act. Not because he hasn't thought things through, but because his power of thinking is so fast that, from our perspective, it's an instantaneous reaction. That's the power of thought. And as we know from the myth of All-Wise, where Thunar outsmarts the smartest dwarf in the universe, who's traveled everywhere, All-Wise, he even calls himself the most wise, he calls him All-Wise, Thor outwits him. So that means that Thor is the god of the mind, Thunar, the first cause of the mind. So for those who can tap into the secret of the thunder god, of Indra, of Thunar, they can connect on a spiritual level. And when you connect to this essence of Thunar, that is connected to the Soma, which is connected to the nectar of immortality, it is an incredibly nourishing and peaceful experience. So it can be difficult because, as you know, thunder and lightning is very quick and very powerful and is a cleansing force. It'll cleanse negativity. That's what makes him a warrior, because Thor fights instantaneously against evil. He goes and fights the giants. Indra fights against Vritra just as Thor fights against Jormungandr. It's the same thing, Vritra and Jormungandr, the world serpent that seeks to constrict this existence. And it is the power of the electromagnetic force that keeps that constriction at bay so that we can have our lives. This is why Thor is constantly fighting the giants. He's constantly fighting Jormungandr. He can't defeat him, but he's keeping it at bay because, that's what's keeping my hands from going together right now, is the electromagnetic force. In fact, my hands aren't even really touching. It just feels like they're touching, but there's an imperceptible force there that's keeping them from touching. This is the electromagnetic force. The electromagnetic force has a web. So let's get back to the web of Indra. It is said that Indra has a web that permeates existence. And this web is also called, is it a necklace? Jala. I don't know what Jala, I forget what Jala means exactly, but its web or necklace, something like that. And this web is it's interlocking. All of these strands interlocked with each other, and every time they interlock, there's like a pearl, a gem. And when you look into each one of these gems, it is said that you see all of the other gems, which means that you're connected to infinity. We talked about this last time, the quantum physics experiment that suggests that that matter does not decide what it's going to be unless somebody is observing it. And then there's the whole idea of non-locality. Again, go Google that. It's quantum physics. I'm not a physicist, so I can't explain it all that great, but it just means that the idea that there's separation, you know, that right now there's separation between me and you, is just false. We are interconnected. That is that pearl, that gem that interconnects all these intersecting lines of energy, this web. When you look into each one of those little gems that acts as a hub for all of the intersecting, you know, points of energy, when you look into that gem, you see all of the other gems. So there is no here or there. It's all there. And there was a picture I found which kind of illustrates it. So this will give you an idea. This is somebody's interpretation of the web of Indra, which I thought was really cool. Okay, so I left that on there for a while so you could see that when you first glance at it, it looks really cool, but when you look into those little pearls, you see more and more and more. It's an infinite window into infinity. So this is Indra, this is Thunar, this is Qigong. When you do Qigong, what you are doing is you are connecting to this infinite web of life force energy. So as I've said, I've decided to teach a mantra. Now this mantra is a synthesis. You won't find it anywhere else. This is the first time in public it's ever being introduced. I have synthesized it, constructed it, channeled it, however you want to look at it. I've also practiced it, and I have felt it as being a very nourishing, a very healing mantra. I will break down the different words because depending on how you break down the syllables, it has different meanings, which is a good mantra will have multiple meanings to it. It's full of seed sounds, so it's very powerful in that way. It is made up of 12 syllables. And the reason why that's important is because in Vedic astrology, there are 12 houses. So a mantra, you want to count the number of syllables because that will tell you what house in somebody's chart it's empowering. And so generally speaking, when you want a mantra that's going to give you liberation, you want to have a mantra that has 12 syllables because that means when you chant it, it's going to empower all 12 of your houses. And the 12th house is about liberation from the body, moving on to the next plane of existence. So that's why the 12 syllable mantras are seen as very spiritual. They're for spiritual worship. There are other mantras used for different reasons, you know, to give you power or to give you money or to give you healing or to give you insight, or, you know, some are used, you know, are very intense and have to be the correct one for you or they can cause you problems. And there are other mantras that I call all-purpose mantras. All-purpose mantras means that anybody can use them, regardless of what's going on in your chart. Some examples would be Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya is one that anybody can do. The other one is, another one is the Gayatri mantra. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bargo Devasya Dimahi Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat. That one is one that's used all over the world. There's a few others. Om Mani Padme Hum is another one. These are general all-purpose mantras that you can use in order to gain general fulfillment. If there is a specific mantra that you should be doing and you don't know what it is, you can chant Om Namah Shivaya with the intent of find me a teacher who can give me my perfect mantra, and that will, even if you chant it for years, it'll still give you what you need. This is one of those mantras. That this is a mantra that will connect you to the web of life force energy, and it's going to do a couple of other things. It's also going to empower the chakras. So as you chant it, especially the first 5 chakras, it will empower the first 5 chakras. Why is that important? Because the first 5 chakras are connected to the 5 elements. So by chanting this mantra, you open up the chakras, you empower the 5 elements, and you connect to the web of life force energy. It does one other thing. It does multiple things, but one other thing that it does is it will connect you to a sense of being absorbed in the universal web of life. So it's a very meditative mantra, meaning that when you chant it, the idea of it is that it connects you to everything, what they call Laya Yoga. Laya Yoga means the yoga of union, the yoga of absorption, to be absorbed in the life, in everything. It's exactly what this mantra does. So I'm going to show you that mantra, and I recommend that you write it down. I hope that you can see it, because things can be kind of blurry on this thing, but I'm going to show it to you. If you can't write it down now, this is going to be archived. You can come back and look at it later and memorize it or write it down. And then I'm going to break up it into different words, put the syllables together into different words, and talk about some of the different functions. So I guess let me first speak to you the mantra. The mantra is Lam Vam Ram Yam Ham Thunara Jalaya Hul. Okay? And here it is. I believe this is it written down. So take a gander. Okay, I'll keep putting that up there so you can see it more and more. I also noticed something else. From an astrological perspective, as I told you, it has 12 syllables. Lam Vam Ram Yam Ham Thunara Jalaya Hul. 12 syllables. In its original word form, there are multiple ways to make different words out of it, but in its original word form, it has 8 words. Lam Vam Ram Yam Ham Thunara Jalaya Hul. 8 syllables. The 8 syllables means that it starts with the 8th house. The 8th house is the house of transformation, the house of transforming from life to death to life again. It is the house of deep esoteric spiritual knowledge. It is the deep house of spirituality. When you want to go deep and go into the other realms of existence, you stimulate the 8th house. I have retrograde Jupiter in my 8th house. There you go. That's why I am what I am. That's why I'm a thunder shaman. Retrograde means that it looks backward. It even looks even deeper. So that's why I am who I am. That's why I do what I do. That's why, even though I'm teaching something that is just very superficial. When people work with me, their whole life starts to come apart. It's because that's who I am. I'm a teacher of transformation. So that's the 8th house. So it has 8 words and 12 syllables, which means it takes the power of transformation and takes it to the 12th house of liberation. So this is a mantra that can give you enlightenment, whatever that means to you. If you practice this mantra for the rest of your life, you will achieve liberation and enlightenment. It will also empower the 5 elements. Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, Ham are the first 5 elements of the first 5 chakras. So it empowers and will balance you physically on all 5 elements. Let's see. Let me take a look at it again. So Thunara Jalaya. So Thunara is Thunar with an added syllable of another Ra, another fire sun element. So Thunara, that brings in the fire of Thunar. Jalaya means the web, or I don't know if it's necklace or web. I can't remember the exact meaning of the word. But a jala is that web we were talking about. So it's the web of Thunar. Now we have Thunaraja Laya. We can turn it into that. Thunar Raja Laya, which is Thunar, the king of absorption. Thunar, the king of universal connection. Laya yoga, as we talked about, is the yoga of absorption, the yoga of union with all of infinity, the yoga of infinity. Thunar Raja Laya. Thunar, the king, the ruler of infinite absorption, infinite connection. Because that's what the force of electromagnetic force is. There is nothing more powerful in the universe, which is why Thunar is the most powerful of all the gods. Now, in the myths, he's not able to destroy time, old age, all those. He's not able to destroy it, but even the giants marvel at his strength, that he is able to keep these things at bay more than any other essence in the universe. Because the giants on some level are the laws of the macro physics, time, death, gravity, old age, these kinds of things, decay. These are some things that the gods themselves are subject to. They can't stop them. Thunar is the only god that holds them at bay. So he is that powerful. So that's why he is the king of Jala. He is the king of the union of all life force energy. So, pretty powerful stuff, right? All right, so I will chant it for you again. This is again one of those mantras. As long as you read it, I've got 2 versions of it. One where it's just spelled out. As long as you just spell out the syllables, you don't have to get it perfect. You will connect to it. It's a very forgiving mantra. When you chant it, you'll feel it. I've got at the end, I've got hul. And that is because we are connecting it, we're grounding this energy into the earth. The hul breath, if you haven't, please go and watch the hul breath mantra. Go onto my channel and look for the playlist that has that. Look for the, just look for it, you'll find it. Hul, H-U-U-L. That is the breath that it is not only cleansing, not only expels negativity, but it brings you into the Earth Mother. There's another very similar seed sound in Vedic Hinduism, which is hung, H-U-N-G, hung. But that N-G sound is the fire, and that fire turns it into a weapon. So when you chant hung at something, you're taking this fiery weapon and destroying negativity in a very violent way. Very powerful mantra. That's why you find it in all kinds of mantras. But Hul is that same cleansing energy of the earth, but the L sound, the Laguj rune, the L sound brings it into the deep well of water, the deep well of earth. And so it becomes a healing and grounding, grounds you very deep. It's a very profound mantra. But anyway, let's go ahead once again. The mantra is Lam Vam Ram Yam Ham Thunarajalaya Hul. So take a look at it and see if you can pronounce it, see if you can memorize it, write it down if you need to. Here it is. Okay, so as I said, even if you weren't able to write it down or memorize it, this will be archived, so you can go back and watch it and pause it and do whatever you need to do to memorize it. Let me see if there's anybody on here. I wasn't intending necessarily to take questions, but I can. People are talking about Google profile pictures, which is perfectly fine. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm totally okay with that. Okay, so there aren't any specific questions on here. We've got 8 people on here now. So that's it. I'll go ahead and leave that as it is. This is another tool that can be used for anybody, gosh, on any level. You know, it's just such a empowering and balancing and healing mantra on so many levels. I guess what you can do is when you're chanting it, you can imagine stimulating the first 5 chakras. Lam, Vam, Ram, Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, Ham. And then Thunara Jalaya. You can just, when you think of Jalaya, you can imagine being connected to that pearl string of interconnected, interwoven. Yeah, it puts me in a trance just playing around with it. You can imagine being connected to that interwoven web of infinity. Thunara Jalaya. And of course, Hul. When you chant the Hul part, you can imagine energy, all of that energy, once you've taken it up through the chakras and connected to everything, then the Hul brings it back down into your body and back down into the earth. You can do this while you're doing qigong exercises. You know, this is one of the things that I want to do with you. Listen, when it comes to some of these practices, you have to do them exactly as instructed, otherwise you can hurt yourself. Or at the very least, you might not get everything out of it. This is not one of those practices. This is, as you've seen it, you can construct it in multiple ways, which means that if you think about it in different constructions, it's going to take you on a different journey. So you have my permission to experiment, as long as you have the basic understandings when you're working with energy of how to, you know, what postures to take. You know, there's some postures you don't want to take. As long as the back of your neck is straight and your spine is straight, doesn't matter. You can do it lying down. You can walk around and do it. You can sit on a chair. You can do it in full lotus. It'll do what it needs to do regardless of that, but it will also want to express itself in multiple ways. So feel free to experiment with it, listen to it, and come back and talk about what you did with it, you know, and how you experienced it. You can chant it silently. You can whisper it. You can chant it out loud. You can chant it as the words are. You know, the first 5 are syllables: lam, vam, ram, yam, ham, thunara, jalaya, hul. Or you can chant it out just by the syllables. There's just so many ways that you can work with this. So I don't know what happened there. The stream shut itself off. So I'm just going to assume that that's as far as I needed to go. Wherever it stopped is where it was meant to stop. So for those of you who are interested, we've got all kinds of ways that you can connect. You can go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the advanced shamanism class. There's all kinds of things you can get, like Vedic astrological readings. I got a special going on right now which will give you a Vedic astrological reading plus a 9 world rune reading and a shamanic North Star reading. So I'm going to do a little bit of ads here for myself, and then I'll go ahead and call it a day for now. I think that mantra wants it to just stay where it is, so we'll honor that. Yeah, so that was weird. So something happened here, and I actually lost everything I'd put up and on my little thing here. So you know, whenever there's a technical glitch like that, I'll have to go back and see what I was saying right when the transmission ended. But in my experience, whenever that happens, whatever it is that you're saying or about to say is extremely important. So I'm gonna, like you, I'll have to go back and discover what that was. So that's it for today. Let's see, did I see any questions here? Lori Smith asked, so from the root chakra upward? Yes. Lam is the root chakra, and Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, Hung moves up the first 5 chakras to the throat. So yeah, if you want to meditate on that and imagine the energy moving up, you can watch it go up. Doesn't really matter whether you do or not. The truth is, it's going to stimulate that anyway. Another little note is that even though I've written it as Lam, L-A-M, Lam, Vam, V-A-M, that M is actually an NG sound. So it's really Lung, Vang, Rang, Yang, Hung. A lot of people don't know that. The NG sound, like the Ing rune, vibrates here where the back of the tongue touches the roof of the mouth, and that vibrates up into the pineal and the pituitary gland. So that's why Om is so powerful, because it has that NG sound. So if you want to do it correctly, make sure you pronounce those M's as NGs. I left them as M's because a lot of people will get confused because they're going to be expecting the seed sounds to be written with an M. So it's not a big deal if you pronounce it one way or the other. My experience is that it works a lot better if you do it accurately, so that's why I'm going to teach it like that. So, okay, so that's going to be it for today. Let's say I've been on for 41 minutes. Yeah, 41 minutes. Okay, so that's going to be it for today. We'll come back to this and we'll talk about it. But for those of you that want to experiment with it and get back to me, share it, and we shall take it from there. So That's it for now, my friends. Until next time, may you be connected to that infinite universal web of life force energy, which is the god Thor, or Thunar, or Indra, the god of the mind, the god of the healing force of life force energy, the god of the moon, the god of healing, the god of true power. Anyway, that's it for now. Until next time, my friends, thank you, and I'll see you guys soon.